Okay, we're going to continue with the license agreement. The issues that you need to discuss and negotiate upon when you sign a license agreement, or before you sign a license agreement. I told you about how withholding tax or withholding of licensee's income tax and the licensors' income tax, withholding on the licensor's income tax may become a deal breaker because it will suddenly come up and reduce the amounts that licensor will be receiving from the licensee. And the licensee has absolute duty to take the withholding and pay to the tax authorities of the licensee's country. So that's why we need to think about ways to avoid withholding, and I told you about the 3 different ways of avoiding withholding. Now, let's talk a little bit more about royalty. Now, royalty usually consists of these 2 things: minimum guarantee and running royalty. So, the guarantees that the film actors or the sports stars receive from the producers, the real name is minimum guarantee. That's why it's called the guarantee. Something is guaranteed. Why is it called the minimum guarantee? What does it mean to pay or be paid a minimum guarantee? For instance, one can say things like, oh, I'll be receiving minimum guarantee of $1 million, and then I'll be receiving 50 cents for each film ticket sold. Okay. So the $1 million will be the minimum guarantee, and 50 cents per viewer, that will be running royalty. So minimum guarantee is the amount that the licensor will receive regardless of the amount of sales that the work brings you. That's the general definition, and I'm going to talk a little bit more in detail later. Okay, so minimum guarantee is the amount that licensor will receive at the beginning of the license period, regardless of the sales. Now, running royalty is the amount that the licensee will pay licensor in proportion to the sales generated. Now, because it is proportional to the sales, the 2 parties have to have agreement on how much sales took place. So you need to impose these 3 obligations on whoever is generating the revenues with the IP that was licensed. Repeat after me. Reporting, record keeping, audit. Reporting what? Who should Report to who? Who should report what to whom?
The licensee shall report the revenue to the licensor.
Yes. Licensee now has the IP and generates revenues exercising the IP and has to report to the licensor. Okay. Record keeping. Record of what? Who should keep the record of what? Licensor or licensee? Licensee should keep the records of what? Yes, the records of revenues. If the licensee report $1 million, there has to be sufficient records to show that all he made, or all they made, all the licensee made is actually $1 million. Okay? The support material. So all the receipts, right? Audit. Who audits who? On what? Again, licensor will have a power to audit licensees what? Licensees records. Licensees revenue records. The records that licensor, the records that licensee was obligated to keep. Now, these three obligations are standard obligations that licensee should not reject, no matter how bigger licensee is, how more powerful licensee is than licensor. It doesn't matter that licensee is Samsung or Apple. If they don't agree to these three obligations in getting your technology, in licensing your technology, you should just advise your client not to go into the deal. Okay? Now, I didn't talk in detail about these three obligations in the context of agency agreement. Remember, these obligations came up in the agency agreement because the commission is also calculated in proportion to the sales generated by the agent, right? Remember that? Now, in both contexts, both in the agency agreement and license agreement, there are negotiating points. You shouldn't just ask for these obligations. You have to ask for specific terms of these obligations. For instance, on reporting, if you are a licensor, you will want as frequent reporting as possible. So, quarterly reporting or half-yearly reporting or yearly reporting. Or if the technology is very sensitive to the time, the passage of time, then maybe you should ask for monthly reporting. And as a licensee, you want to reduce the frequency of reporting because reporting can be very cumbersome for licensee. As to record keeping, the negotiating point is for how long. Okay. For how long licensee has to keep the records. Now, for how long the licensee keep the records, decide how long into the past, okay, how far back into the past the audit can reach. Because we can do audit only on the records that are available. So if all the records the license has for 3 years, then audit can go back only that far. As to audit, there is also negotiating point of how frequent one has power to do the audit. Licensor has the power to audit. Audit is much more cumbersome than reporting or record keeping for the licensee. For an audit, an accounting firm will be hired and will be given an office space in the licensee's facilities. And the accounting team will interview the employees of a licensee. We'll ask for records after records to check whether the revenue reporting has been proper. And the other negotiating point on audit is who will pay for the audit. Because somebody will have to pay for the accounting firm. We are talking about a lot of money, at least. For a small company, even for a small company, the minimum of $20,000, $30,000. Okay? So there's usually the licensee, usually the licensor, the one who wants to do the audit, will be expected to pay for the audit. So licensor will be expected to pay for the audit. But then again, licensor will feel that it is unfair when licensor was compelled, or licensor felt compelled to do the audit because licensee has appeared very unfaithful. Licensor may think that he had to order the audit because licensee's appearance has not been trustworthy. And expect the licensee to share the cost of audit. So usually they negotiate and they compromise on the point that, okay, if the audit reveals some deficiencies on the part of a licensee's behavior, then licensee will be responsible. So usually the compromise term goes like, if there is more than a 5% deficiency, then licensee will pay for the audit. If the deficiency discovered is less than 5%, that means, then might not be because the licensee has been unfaithful, but because the licensee just has been negligent. Okay? Not that negligence is any good, but that the omissions or deficiencies were the result of inadvertence, okay? Not intentional. Or the deficiencies may come from the difference of accounting practices, okay? Which the parties didn't know in the beginning. Okay? Just one add-on is, I just said that the deficiency may arise out of just use of different accounting practices, right? Now, to prevent that type of misunderstanding, some licensor licensee put in the license agreement what accounting practices according to which the reporting and records have to be prepared. And the second thing about running royalty is it is calculated as a 5%, 8%, whatever percentage multiplied to the revenue. So there has to be term about what level of revenue are we talking about. Are we talking about gross receipts, meaning all the money that licensee has received? Or are we talking about net profits, which means what licensee has earned after taking out the expenses? VAT, value added tax. 부가가치세죠. 우리나라 이제 10%인데 should that amount be included in the amount multiplied by the royalty rate? How about returns and reimbursements? Returns and reimbursements that may have been caused by licensees' conduct or licensors' technology, the quality of licensors' technology. Now, if oops, should have been turned off. Licensor if licensee's conduct has caused the returns and reimbursements, then it's not fair for licensor to take those amounts out of the revenues multiplied by the royalty rate, right? But if the returns and reimbursements were the result of inherent quality of licensor's technology, then the amount has to be reduced for that much. Yes?
What returns and reimbursements are you talking about?
Returns of the products that licensees sell. Right? Consumers, right? The licensee makes these products using licensor's technology, and licensee sells them, right? So, in the book, there will be revenue created by the licensee, but let's say the consumers don't like them and return them, right? Then should the revenue be reduced by the amount of the return? Okay. Which means you reduce the amount that licensor receives. Okay. So licensor may say, hey, it's your fault that the returns were made. I have to be paid the royalty for those returned products. Okay. Any question, comment on this slide? Okay, let's move on. Now, how about sub-license? How about the provision? The question is a sub-licensee allowed, meaning is licensee allowed to appoint a sub-licensee? If the contract is silent on that issue. The default is should not be, because license should not be allowed to appoint sub-licensee because license is done by a contract, and the standard interpretation is that licensor granted licensee a license. A lot of similar sounding terms, so don't be confused. Licensor grants licensee a license because licensee himself or herself is trustworthy. Licensee cannot turn around and make that determination, him or herself. Another point is, who should police piracy? You know what piracy is? Unlicensed manufacturing and selling of the products. So if lots of piracy goes on in licensee's country, who should have the power or who should have obligation? Now, piracy hurts both licensor and licensee. The licensee cannot raise revenues, thereby reducing the running royalties the licensor gets. So who should police piracy? It takes money. You need to hire law firms to file lawsuit. In Korea, since it's a criminal, to file criminal complaints with the prosecutors. Okay? Filing complaint with the prosecutor, you don't actually need a lawyer, but to make sure that the prosecutors are doing a good job, many resourceful clients go through law firms to file criminal complaints. Who do you think should pay for piracy? I mean, piracy policing or anti-piracy activities. Licensee, the reason?
Because they are the ones using the license, and they should be responsible for unauthorized use.
Yeah. This depends on what the license is, an exclusive licensee, right? If licensee is exclusive, that means the entire market was entrusted with a licensee. So licensee logically should have a duty to combat piracy in that market. But then again, depending on the copyright law in each country, it may have to be licensor to do the enforcement. Because some copyright laws do not allow licensee to prosecute piracy. In Korea, I think that now non-exclusive licensee does not have power to prosecute unlicensed goods. I think there are some cases on whether exclusive licensees have power to do so. I mean, usually what will happen is exclusive licensee will get a power of attorney, 위임장, from licensor. But some courts don't recognize those powers of attorney because, hey, that's filing a lawsuit in a court of law. When you file a lawsuit in a court of law, if you can represent another person with just simple paper power of attorney, then anybody can do that, right? Why should there be made an exception for copyright enforcement? Okay. Only lawyers representing the clients can represent another person. Here you are saying that a company, licensee, wants to represent licensor, another company, just with a simple piece of paper, will not recognize. Okay? So there may be some, although as Jung-won said, I think it's logical that licensee police piracy. I'm saying that the laws may require licensor to be involved as a party in the enforcement proceedings. Okay. And then in a license agreement, you should also talk about warranty. Now, warranty is a warranty on the substance, the warranty on the subject matter of the agreement. So, who will have the interest in getting the warranty, licensor or licensee? Licensee, right? Because licensee wants to know what he or she is getting. And I told you about 3 different warranties. I talked about agent's warranty in the agency agreement. But other than that, I talked about 3 standard warranties that you should always keep thinking about. Quality warranty, product liability warranty, and third-party IP non-infringement warranty. Now, let me say that in a license agreement, you probably don't need quality warranty or product liability warranty. Because why? Because you are not getting a product, right? A licensee is not getting any product from licensor. Licensee is just getting an idea of a product, right? Idea either patented or copyrighted. Idea or design, right? Or expression. Licensee is not getting the completed product. So licensor cannot warrant the safety of the product or quality of the product because the licensor is not making the product. So the only warranty that you need to worry about is third-party IP non-infringement warranty. And the corresponding indemnification. This warranty basically states, or strike that. Through this warranty, a licensor warrants that licensees exercising of the technology or work licensed will not infringe on the rights, intellectual property rights of third parties. Okay? Basically, it's a warranty that licensee will not be sued for exercising the IPs that licensor has just granted to licensees. So what happens if licensee is sued by a third party? Licensor has to provide defense, which means licensor will have to pay for a law firm. Another negotiating point is in this indemnification, another negotiating point is, okay, licensor will pay the money for a law firm, but who will direct the law firm? On whose strategy the law firm will conduct the litigation? Generally, licensor will have to direct, because if the lawsuit is lost, who will pay for the judgment? Licensor again, right? So licensor has the greater interest in how the lawsuit is conducted. But then again, licensee may feel that it also has some interest in the success of the litigation, because there may be, you now know what injunction is, right? Some injunctions may come out of the lawsuit restricting licensees' businesses. And the duration of the litigation, the publicity around the litigation, that all has profound impact on licensees' business and reputation. So there is another negotiating point of who will direct. Who will direct the defense when a third party sues licensee? Question, comment? Okay, let's talk about franchise agreement. Franchise agreement is a class of license agreements whereby a licensor's business identity is transferred to licensee for duplication. So many hamburger places here are not McDonald's. They are not part of a McDonald's company. And yet, customers go to McDonald's thinking that it's a part of the McDonald's. Why? Because the entire business identity, just the look and appearance of a McDonald's is transferred onto that store. Same thing with a lot of GS 24 or 25. Is it 24 or 25? 25. And 7-Elevens and Family Marts, many of them are franchisees that are not in any way, that are not in any other way related to the big companies Family Mart, GS25. Okay. So to get that identity, what does licensee need? Number one, need trademark, right? So it is mainly a trademark license. Now on top of that, to be run like franchisors company, you need a lot of other information. Sometimes you need technology. Sometimes you need a software to run the franchisee company or the franchise store, just like the franchisors. So franchise agreement usually have copyright licenses and trade secrets as well. Okay. So I call franchise agreement trademark license plus. So now we know that franchise agreement is like a license agreement. So all the things that we've learned so far about license agreement apply directly to franchise agreement. And then there are some special points that you need to know about franchise agreement. Number one, because franchise is transfer of business identity, 한 회사의 정체성을 나눠주는 거죠. Because it concerns sharing of a whole business identity of a franchisor, franchisor has strong need to protect goodwill that franchisor has with the customers. goodwill은 뭐 선의 이런 게 아니라 지명도를 말합니다. 지명도. goodwill. 그러니까 will은 의지죠. 그래서 소비자들이 이미 어떤 회사에 대해서 선한 의지를 이미 갖고 있다. 이렇게 생각하면 이제 외우기가 쉽죠. 그걸 우리는 보통 이제 지명도라고 합니다. 근데 이제 지명도라는 번역이 좀 안 맞긴 한데 지명도는 이제 얼마나 잘 알려져 있느냐. 뭐 이런 의미로 쓰여지지만 원래 한자는 이제 그렇게 돼 있지만 근데 또 한국에 실제로 쓸 때는 지명도 하면은 뭐 꼭 그런 뜻은 아니지만 소비자들이 뭐 지명을 받을 정도로 소비자들이 선호하는 뭐 선호도라고 생각해도 되겠어요. goodwill을. Anyway, so has strong need to protect franchisors' goodwill. So there will be a detailed control on goods and services. That's why this talk of slave contracts. If you go into negotiation on a franchise agreement, franchisee will always come out of the negotiating room and saying, what the hell? This is like a license. I mean, this is like a slave agreement, right? But franchise agreements are bound to become slave agreements. Not in the sense that licensee, not in the sense of economic terms, okay, but in the sense of control on how the business is run. So all these franchise restaurants, there's a detailed manual on what the color of the floor should be, what the color of the ceilings should be, how many people should be hired, what uniforms that they have to wear, what they have to say to the customers, whether the customers need to get the food themselves or should be delivered the food on their tables. detailed control. Why? Because we are talking about a business identity that franchisor may want to sell, may want to share with all other potential franchisees. You know, when you go to less developed countries where people live at a different standards of living that you used to live in, or different standards of sanitation and public health than the standards that you lived in, then you may feel very overwhelmed by the whole different new environment, and you may have trouble looking for a next safe place to eat, and you drive around, and then you see, you know, big McDonald's sign, and just by looking at the business identity, you know what you are getting, right? You know that there will be a, let's say you have to go to the bathroom. Okay, a lot of people go to McDonald's to go to the bathroom, right? Or there's franchise places to go to the bathroom. The detailed manual requires that there will be a bathroom, even how many, right? So people have these expectations of what these franchises will provide for you, and that is the selling point of the franchise. So all these franchise places have to be uniform, have to be identical with one another to a certain extent to keep the value of the franchise, so the franchisor can sell it to another, to share that business identity with yet another place. And that's all good. In long term, that's all good for all franchisees, because the customer's goodwill toward that business identity is built on the fact that these franchises are identical with one another to a certain extent. So if your client says, oh, you know, I don't want to go into this slave agreement, you should persuade them though. You should persuade them. You should at least give friendly advice on the nature of franchise agreement. So, and a lot of details are also left to franchisor's discretion. You know, there will be, I mean, this is what your client, this is what your client will be hard to swallow. There will be detailed agreements, detailed instructions about how to run a business, and then it will end with a clause like, oh, it's subject to change to franchisor's discretion. This is what really angers franchisees. Hey, if a franchisor informs me in advance how to run a business, you know, I'll invest time and money to follow the instructions. But then again, it can be changed at franchisor's discretion. I cannot accept that. Now, to this part, you have some, you are responsible for at least getting some discretion out of the franchise agreement. Okay? So argue to the other side, as a franchisee's lawyer, argue to the other side that, you know, this much discretion on this point builds too much uncertainty into the relationship. You know, let's get it out. Which means the instructions on how to run business can be changed only subject to both parties' consent. Okay? Now, Other than that, as I said, whether it's exclusive, non-exclusive, or how the exclusivity affects the agreement is again the same as license agreements. Okay? And also, meaning of exclusivity is also same as a license agreement. Allowing sub-franchise, if the contract is silent, no, you can't do that. And then there are other special points for franchise agreement that are not applicable to license agreement. Usually, franchisor must have duties of supporting franchisee. So usually training and consulting. Because getting the trademark, getting the software, getting the trade secret itself, I mean, if it's a restaurant, getting the recipes, usually is not sufficient to run a restaurant like a franchisors. So franchisor always need franchisor in person, giving franchisee help. So as a franchisee, you want training and consulting from franchisor. And usually the expenses of the training are usually paid for by franchisee. Because it's the franchisee that needs it. And it's the franchisee that knows how many trainings and consultations that franchisee needs. Understandable, right? Another point is, in Korea, there is a franchising law. There's franchising law in the US too. In many market economies where franchise relationship is franchises are used in many places, what the laws do is the laws protect franchisees. Because a lot of times franchisees enter into franchise agreements believing that getting that trademark, getting that business identity will be valuable for a franchisee. Let's say you're a small store, a no-name store, and now by getting the Family Mart business identity, the store owner expects that the revenue will increase. Of course, in return, the franchisee will have to pay royalty to the Family Mart, the company. But there is some expectation that franchisee has about sales increase. Now, there are a lot of franchisors who abuse that expectation, right? Some franchisors make misrepresentations, make false representations about how much customers seek this business identity, how much goodwill is built into the clientele. So a lot of franchisees just relying on what franchisor says buy the franchises, right, and pay a lot of minimum guarantees. And then franchisor just takes the minimum guarantees and really bad ones just run off. And franchisees open the business with a new business identity, but are not seeing any sales increases. So franchisees just lost whatever that they paid as a minimum guarantee is just lost forever. So 그 주식 공시하는 것처럼 이 프랜차이즈 가맹사업법인데요. 가맹사업법도 일종의 공시 의무를 주도록 해요. So it requires all franchisors to give public notice of how well the business is running. And then will be held responsible for any misrepresentations in the public notices. Okay? All other franchising laws, the franchising laws in all other countries are the same thing. The main concept is public notice of the business potential. Oh, you have a question?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
You know how the expenses are paid by the franchisee? If
Which expenses?
the travel,
Okay.
consultant travel expenses.
Okay.
Is it just the travel expenses? Because I know the wage of the consultant or the
Well, that's what
provided by the franchisee.
That's what, as a franchise lawyer, has to argue. Hey, whoever you are sending are employees of your company. They are being already paid by you, right? So it should be just part of your obligation as a franchisor. It's a part of a support obligation as a franchisor. I've seen many franchise contracts that do not provide for any separate fees for franchisor employees' visit.
Including the travel expenses?
Travel expenses usually paid for by the franchisees, but I'm talking about the fees for service.
Okay.
Yeah, or
So these are all negotiating points?
yeah.
Like initial training, for example, or traveling to headquarters for training?
Well, I think that those are not really negotiating points. Those are kind of standard points that you should definitely get from a franchisor if you're a franchisee's lawyer. And if you're a franchisor's lawyer, if a franchisor, if you're a franchisor's lawyer, if the client is adamant about not giving franchisee training and consultation unless being paid, then you should tell your client to cool. Okay? Hey, cool down. You should, this is something basic that you should provide to a franchisee. And it's good for you too because, if the business is run the correct way, it strengthens the power of the business identity.